Welcome to the FDOT Automated Quantities Training for MicroStation Select Series 4, Module 1. This video will cover Chapters 1 and 2 from the Automated Quantities Training Guide, which can be found on the Production Support CADD website at www.fdot.gov/CADD under Most Requested CADD Training Guides. In the Bentley MicroStation section, click on FDOT Automated Quantities. It is recommended to download both the training guide and dataset from the website to follow along or practice the exercises that will be shown in this video. FDOT provides tools that help automate the process of generating the quantity documentation that is required to be submitted with all FDOT projects. It is important to keep this process in mind throughout the development of your design files. During the design process, using GeoPack's Design and Computation Manager, as well as civil features to create design elements, will apply quantity attributes to those elements. The Design and Computation Manager is then used to export the quantity data. This data is stored in a database that can be accessed with GeoPack's Quantity Manager. Not all quantity data can be applied to specific design elements, so those items must be manually entered into the Quantity Manager database. The Quantity Manager database should be used to store all quantity data for the project. This data is needed to generate the plan summary of quantities and the summary of pay items. FDOT provides the Linked Data Manager, or LDM tool, to assist with creating the plan summary of quantities tables. Most of these tables are automated, though a few must be completed manually. For those tables that must be completed manually, FDOT also provides a report style that can be exported from the Quantity Manager database that can assist in populating the manual quantity tables. LDM is used to generate the tables for the summary of quantities in Excel format, which is then linked to MicroStation to be included in the plan sheets. The summary of quantities tables are then included in the plan set in the order, location, and format as indicated in the Basis of Estimates Manual and the Florida Design Manual or the Structures Detailing Manual. The Quantity Manager database is also used to export quantity data into Ashtaware Project Preconstruction's Designer Interface. The data is exported into a report in XML format, which is compatible with the Ashtaware tools. Before importing to Designer Interface, though, the data must be processed through the Quantity Rounder tool provided in the FDOT toolbar. This ensures that the quantity data is all rounded to the correct precision indicated in the Basis of Estimates Manual. The data is then imported into Designer Interface as required in the FDOT Design Manual. Once the project is complete and all the quantity information is in Ashtaware Project Preconstruction, the project quantity data can be retrieved and processed via the FDOT Transport tool to generate the plan summary of pay items. The requirements for drawing, computing, and documenting quantity pay item information may be found in several FDOT publications. The Basis of Estimates Manual is the governing document that specifies how to compute pay item quantities. It contains details such as units of measure for each pay item, the approved tables, format, and order for the summary boxes, the category groupings required by Designer Interface, as well as a complete listing and details for each pay item. Additional requirements for plans production are contained in the FDOT CAD Manual, Standard Plans, Specifications, FDM, and the Structures Detailing Manual. Though all of these publications can be accessed through the FDOT.gov website, the FDOT SS4 bar menu also contains links for your convenience. On the bar menu, under the Standard pull-down, you will find links for the BOE, Standard Plans, and FDM, as well as several other helpful links. There are two design files that contain quantity pay item information. The proposed design file, or DSGN file, contains items that are linear or length quantities, as well as items that are calculated by the number of individual items, or per each. Any quantities that are computed based on area, tonnage, or cubic yards are documented in the QTD-SRD file. This file should contain models for each different pay item. Exercise 1.1. Create and set up the QTD-SRD file. This exercise will show you how to use the Create File tool to create the QTD-SRD file. Attach the necessary references, create models within the QTD-SRD file, and it will show some best practices that will make updating and processing your quantity data easier throughout the length of your project. The first thing we need to do is open MicroStation. Open the FDOT SS4 folder on your desktop and double-click the FDOT SS4 icon, either for Power Geopack or with or without Geopack, depending on your installation. Make sure to navigate to the correct folder where you have downloaded your copy of the training dataset. Select the project, roadway folder, then open the dsgnrd01.dgn file. Once the file opens, you can close the Project Explorer dialog and relocate the FDOT bar menu. Right-click on the left side of the toolbar to access the toolbar's Settings menu. Select Save Settings to lock the location and settings of the bar menu. On the bar menu, select Actions, then Create File to open the Create File tool. If your project path is not the same as the location of your project dataset, click the Select Project button and navigate to the location of your project. Double-click on the project number, then click the Select Folder button. Set the discipline to Roadway and the file group to Roadway Files. In the File Type list, scroll down to find the file name QTD-SRD with the description Quantity Computation Shapes Calculations. Verify the file name and sequence number are correct. The output folder should be Roadway, and the seed file should be FDOT Seed 2D. You may need to set the county to Wakulla, which will automatically set the correct coordinate system. Note that the action is a command that will set the plot scale when the file is created and opened. Different file types may have different actions assigned in this area, so be sure to note them, but do not modify the assigned actions. Click the Create Open File button. When the file opens, the Plot Scale dialog appears. Click OK, then click Close on the Create File dialog. Now that we're in our new QTD-SRD file, we need to attach our reference files. Select File, References to open the Reference File dialog. Then on that dialog, select Tools, Attach, and select the ALGNRD01 file. In the Attachment dialog, select the model for ALGNRD_50 and click OK. Repeat the process for the DSGNRD01 file, but leave the model set as default. Next, we need to attach the topo file. That file is located in the Survey folder, so select the Root Project folder and scroll down to the Survey folder. Open it and select TOPORD01. Leave the model as default and click OK. For this exercise, we've only attached the 3 files, but any design file that will help you define your area shapes should be referenced at this time. Now we have all of our references attached. Click Fit View, then select File, Save Settings. Next, we need to create models for each pay item. In this exercise, we'll create 2 to demonstrate the process. Select File, Models to open the Models dialog. Our default model already has the necessary references attached, so we can copy the default model and rename the copies for each of our pay item models. Highlight and change the name to 0327 space 70 space 1 to match the BOE pay item format. For model names, you could also replace the spaces with dashes, as long as each pay item is clear and all the models are named consistently. Next, fill in the description. Milling existing asphalt pavement, 1-inch average depth. The model description should match the BOE description as closely as possible. It's important to have the correct pay item name and description so that designers and reviewers can easily locate the correct model for each pay item. Click OK, then repeat the process for the next model. Copy the default model, then change the name and rename it. In this case, 0334 space 1 space 52. Change the description to Super Pave, Asphaltic Concrete, Traffic B, page 76-22, and click OK. As you're creating the pay item models, keep in mind that you'll need to export the quantity data for all the items in all the models. It's a requirement to have separate models for each pay item, but instead of having to open each model to process, calculate, and export the quantities, you can reference all the individual pay item models to a single location. Some designers may reference all the pay item models back to the default model. If you're using your default model as a template to copy for new pay item models, you might not want to do that. You can create a separate composite model with a clear name and description with all the pay item models referenced within it, and you can use that model to calculate and export your quantities as a group from a single location. Having a composite model in your QTD SRD is not required, but can save a lot of time later in your project. Close the Models dialog, then save settings. Next, we'll look at the Design and Computation Manager. There are several ways to open DNC Manager. There are buttons on both the FDOT Plans Development Quantities toolbar or on the Geopack Road Tools toolbar. And there is a link under Geopack Road for Design and Computation Manager. So let's explore DNC Manager. Open the FDOT Plans Development toolbar and expand the Quantities tab. Select the DNC Manager icon. DNC Manager opens in dialog mode by default. There's a toolbox mode available which can be docked, but for now we'll keep it in dialog mode. Across the top there are standard menu items. File has the usual options for New, Open, Save, and Save As. Merge allows databases to be merged, and Compress reduces the file size of the database. It's unlikely that a designer will need to use these functions. There is also an option to password protect the database, but this is not recommended in the FDOT workflow. An exit will close DNC Manager. Edit provides the standard editing tools of copy, move, delete, and rename, which is used to rename categories. It also has a find function, which is very useful. Find opens a database search dialog that allows you to search on an item or category, name or description, and you can refine the search to match case or whole name. It will search to the first match and continue through the database until you find the item or category you want. Identify allows you to select a MicroStation drawing element in the file and will set the selected element to the active selection in the database. You can also add new category or new item and modify or review an item. Only use the Modify option if you are working in a project-specific saved database and changes are required to be saved. If you want to review the properties of any item, it is recommended to use the Review option. Settings gives access to the various options for the default settings for DNC Manager. These will be covered more when we discuss calculating quantities. Favorites allows you to create and save groups of commonly used or calculated items to quickly access them and save time. We'll go over this more later in this module. And Help gives the Bentley help files for DNC, which can provide information on topics that are not covered in this training. The toolbar has several buttons. The first, as we've seen, switches the display to the toolbox mode. In toolbox mode, the format is slightly different. The first checkbox toggles Place Influence. The next two pull-downs allow you to select the category folders and subfolders. And allows you to select the individual items to set active. The up and down level buttons adjust the active category and item levels. In this view, the Find Database Search has a button to activate the dialog. There is also a button for ID or identify an element. Next are the display buttons. The normal display, highlight selection, hide selection, and display only selection. The set command, and the key in option buttons. The final button returns the display to dialog box mode. Back in dialog mode, we see the ID button again. The display button opens a separate dialog for the display options to adjust the view display of the selected DNC items in MicroStation. We'll look at this more closely later in this module. Design is used to draw MicroStation elements with DNC-defined attributes. When design mode is active, there are additional dialogues to set place influence and include ad hoc attributes. When ad hoc attributes is checked, another dialog appears that displays the ad hocs available for the currently selected item. These ad hoc values can be filled in as required in this dialog before placing MicroStation elements, to apply those attributes as the elements are placed. The Set command sets existing MicroStation elements to the selected DNC attributes. It has a dialog that has options to use a complex chain and to set ad hoc attributes. It also sets the Attach mode to delete, append, or replace attributes. Clicking the Set button applies the current active attributes as indicated with the Attach mode. The Compute command opens the Plan Quantity Computation dialog. Here you can set the GeoPack job, define the plan extents, and set the chain. You can also set the range and station limits of the elements you want to calculate. Clicking Compute Quantities initiates the Computation Results dialog, which shows the pay item, description, quantity, and unit of measure of the selected item or collection set. From this dialog, you can set the format and file name of the Quantity Manager MDB database to export the quantities to, specify to append or create a new MDB, designate a run name if desired, and set the groupings. It's very important to change the grouping name from the default named options and to use the codes provided in the Basis of Estimates Chapter 9. If the groupings are not set correctly, the MDB database will not work to export to Project Preconstruction's Designer interface at the end of the project. It could require all quantities to be re-exported into a new database. Setting the groupings properly from the beginning will save a lot of work later in the project. The Shape command can be used to place shapes in MicroStation with DNC attributes. However, this tool is not recommended for creating quantity shapes since it does not function properly with some civil elements, especially civil cells. The pavement marking tools provide options for placing pavement, striping, and markings. These tools are covered in more detail in the Traffic Plans course. The Preferences command provides tools for editing the DNC database, as we saw in the Edit pull-down from the menu. New Category, New Item, Modify Item, and Review Item. You'll notice that the database is displayed in DNC in a folder structure or tree. Each folder is referred to as a category. Each category is composed of subcategories or items. There are three types of items. The first is a default item shown with a paper icon. This allows DNC to set symbology and supplemental search criteria, which can allow DNC to recognize an item even if it has more than one symbology associated with it. And the default item can also assign ad hoc attributes. The next item is Drafting Standards item, which is shown with a paintbrush icon. This item sets symbology and supplemental search criteria and sets limits for drafting settings for placement of coordinate geometry elements. Finally, the Compute Parameters item is shown with a calculator icon. This item sets symbology, supplemental search criteria, and ad hocs, as well as defining compute parameters. Compute parameters can be used to set the units of measure, which can be set to standard units that can be selected from the provided list, a criteria file, which is not currently used in the FDOT workflow, by equation, which uses a mathematical equation that can be defined in the box, or set to refer back to ad hoc attributes for compute parameters defined there. The search button brings up a list of the currently defined standard units that have calculation equations already set. Any unit of measurement not shown in this list would need to use the equation option to define how the item is to be calculated. You can also set rounding precision, force quantities to round up to the next value, set the processing method and quantity factor. Quantity deductions can also be specified here for items that require quantities to be modified to deduct for items such as curb inlets. When you see a Compute Parameters item followed by two or more default items, usually the default items are used to place elements which have unique symbology or attributes within the same pay item. Once the elements are placed, they may then be computed with the Compute Parameters item, which will total all the quantities associated with the elements placed with the related default items. For more information about various abilities and functions in DNC Manager, refer back to the menu Help, Contents section. Exercise 2.1. Identify an existing element. This exercise will show how to use the DNC Manager ID tool to match an existing design element. It will also use the Display tool to change the display to view those elements. Let's open our project design file. Click File, Open, and navigate to the DSGN RD01 file. Adjust the toolbar as necessary. For this exercise, you won't need the 3D model, so you can close the View 2 window and maximize the View 1 plan view. Zoom to the new intersection to center it in your display. In the FDOT Plans Development taskbar, in the Quantities section, click on the DNC Manager icon. In the DNC Manager dialog, click the ID Identify Item button. In the design file, look at the northeast or top right section of the intersection and left-click on the face of the curb. You should see it highlight. Left-click again anywhere in the file to accept the command. Notice that DNC Manager Database has expanded and highlighted the Compute Parameters item for Concrete Curb and Gutter Type F. Zoom out to see the whole intersection, then select the DNC Manager display icon. This brings up the Display Settings toolbox. This toolbox has the options to display all items, highlight the selected items in DNC, hide the selected items in DNC, or display only the selected items. These tools work with a single selected item or can be used with a collection set to change the display of a group of items. With Concrete Curb and Gutter Type F selected, click the Highlight Selection button. Note that the curb elements highlight on both sides of the intersection. If the highlighted items are difficult to see, you can select the Display Only selection to hide all the other elements. Click the Normal Display button to return the view to its original state. Exercise 2.2. Create a collection set and add to favorites. In this exercise, we will use DNC Manager to create a collection set of commonly used items, then organize and save the collection set to the project directory. Continuing from the previous exercise, in the DNC Manager dialog box, select File, Save As, New File. This will create a copy of the DNC Manager database that we will save in the project directory. Navigate to the Project SYMB folder and save the file with the project number 2204955501.ddb. The file is saved but not yet active in DNC Manager, so select File, Open, and navigate to the file we just saved. Notice that the top line in the database now shows the path to the project database. It is recommended to save a copy of the database to your project even if you make no changes to it. Be sure it is the most current FDOT delivered database that applies to the letting date of your project, including any project-specific modifications, so there is a snapshot of the database at the time of letting that will be delivered along with the project. Make sure that the Concrete Curb and Gutter Type F item is highlighted, then right-click on it and choose Add to Favorites. Following the list in the training guide, let's find the rest of the items to add. The drafting items are in the MISC Drafting and Criteria Items folder. Expand that folder and highlight, then right-click on EOPA and add to favorites. BSW, and FSW. As a trick to find the next item, let's use the Edit Find tool. You can use this tool to search on a name or description of an item. In the name box, enter 0520 space 5 space 11. Then click Start. Note that the database opens to that location with the item highlighted. Right-click and add to favorites. Close the database search dialog. Finally, scroll down and open the category for Guardrail, then highlight and add Roadway TL3 Left and Roadway TL3 Right. Now when you click on the Favorites menu, the drop-down contains all the items we just added. Select the Concrete Curb and Gutter Type F from the Favorites pull-down, and note the active highlighted item in the database changes to the Type F curb. Select the Favorites menu again and click Organize Favorites. This opens a dialog that allows you to change the order of the list or delete unnecessary items. There are also options to open an existing collection or save the current items to a new collection. In the My Favorites dialog, select Save As. Navigate to the project directory, then select the SYMB folder. Save the file as drafting.col. You can create collections for drafting or calculation of quantity items. The items can be divided into different collections based on commonly used items or in groups like drainage, traffic control, and signing a payment marking. Since the collections are saved to the project, any designer working on the project has access to the collections that can help with various workflows. Creating a quantity calculation collection can also be very helpful if you use the collection in conjunction with the composite model of the QTD-SRD, as discussed in the last section. This can make the process of exporting a group of quantities as simple as a few clicks. Close the My Favorites dialog and close MicroStation. This is the end of Module 1. Next, continue to Module 2, Chapter 3, Civil Features and Ad Hoc Attributes Manager.